I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us once again, former World Bank attorney Karen Hudes. Karen Hudes, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thanks for having me back, Greg. Glad to be with you.
I need to just give you a little introduction here so we can cut through all the stuff that you've talked about before. 20-year veteran of the World Bank. You are an economist. You worked for the World Bank in the legal department for 20 years. When you left for whistleblowing, you were forced out. That you were senior counsel for the World Bank. You have a network of whistleblowers around the world. You're working with government officials, and including about a dozen governors here in the United States of America, about all the rampant corruption, fraud, crime, and shenanigans going on, where basically the powers that be are ripping off the world and impoverishing them. Have I missed anything yet?
Well, you might mention the fact that General Dempsey, chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, had a town hall meeting on December 2nd and hasn't answered my question. And when you said 10 governors, no, it's all the governors, all the attorneys general, and the county executives.
Okay.
That's just in the U.S., and I've been dealing with all of the World Bank member countries. That's 188 of them.
Fantastic. So where are we in this? I mean, what we're hearing here out here in the regular guy land, where people are trying to get information that they cannot get from the mainstream media. Where are we in this unfolding calamity that is apparent? I mean, you know, we have, you said you were at a town hall meeting with General Dempsey, and you are basically telling him, hey, General, what's going on with the shenanigans going on here that's imploding the country?
No, that's not what I told him.
Okay. What did you tell him?
The World Bank and the IMF are at the very center of the international financial system, and they have a number of roles, and one of their roles is to supervise something called the Global Collateral Account. That's a fancy word for all the wealth of the world. Gold, precious metals, other precious metals, treasure, paintings, you name it. The world's wealth is there for the benefit of humanity. And we have been offered by Wolfgang Struck, who's the authorized signatory on the collateral account, we've been offered in the United States 170,500 metric tons of gold on deposit in the Bank of Hawaii to underpin our currency, which is about to crash. The Federal Reserve notes are unconstitutional, and we don't have to pay interest on our debt. We don't have to have debt, for that matter. And this is what John F. Kennedy knew full well and had arranged just 10 days before he was murdered, taken out to try to prevent us from doing what it is that we're supposed to do. And what I asked General Dempsey was, I said, if your job is to see to the military strength of the United States, and the currency of the United States is deliberately being kept weak and about to crash for no good reason, what on earth do you think you're doing there?
He said?
He tried to get out of it. And then it was posted on Veterans Today for about a week or two, and then Veterans Today took down my question. They didn't take down the question, the follow-up questions by the other people. And, of course, I've been repeating this question in various other fora. And General Dempsey, he's just terribly discredited, isn't he?
Well, let's back up before we get to the 170,000, before we get to the currency that's in trouble. Let's talk about this 170,000 tons of gold on deposit in the Bank of Hawaii. Now, a lot of people hear this, Ms. Hudes, and they say, oh, come on, 170,000 tons. I mean, we knew about 8,200 tons, and it was guarded in the middle of Fort Knox, but 170,000 tons. What do you say to people that say, oh, come on, how can there be this many, thousands of tons of gold that most people don't know about? Well, how do you answer your critics with that number?
I say that you are totally kept in the dark, and that the mainstream media is controlled by this network of control that's been totally documented by the Federal Institute of Technology, and that you really ought to chide yourself for all of the other things that you're deliberately kept in the dark about. So you shouldn't be surprised that the world's wealth is hidden from you when so much else is hidden from you. That's the first thing I say, for starters. And then I say I'm not the only one that's referring to this wealth. There's Lord James Blackheath. He's in the House of Lords in the United Kingdom, and he asked a question about trillions of dollars that flew into, I believe it was Union Bank of Scotland. In any event, he asked a question in Parliament, didn't get an answer, and you remember that one of the World Bank whistleblowers that I'm working with, Elaine Colville, and I have asked the UK Parliament on 3 different occasions what they thought they were doing. The last occasion was in July when they wanted to know whether the complaint procedure was working. And I said, it's absolutely not working, and Parliament, UK Parliament, is AWOL. That means absent without leave, because they never followed up on the unanswered questions. But actually, you know, they did follow up, because a UK lawyer got in touch with me right after my first question was published in the UK Parliament. That was in 2011. He said, Karen, it's time to go to the credit rating agencies. And I did. And, you know, the United States credit rating was lowered by Standard & Poor's, and that's when Eric Holder decided to sue Standard & Poor's, and that's what the lawyer, Abrams, who's defending Standard & Poor's, said. He said Standard & Poor's was being punished for lowering the credit rating, and that doesn't work. So in the meantime, there's a 4th credit rating agency now, which was set up by Russia and China, and it has some private investors in there, the Universal Credit Rating Group. So we've got to solve this problem. It's not just that the United States credit rating is affected, but also the World Bank credit rating, because this corruption and the improper audit that was done by KPMG, they didn't follow the audit standards. I had been to the board. I had met with, first of all, the French had chaired the audit committee, Pierre Duquesne, and that's when Pierre Duquesne asked for an inquiry into something called the Institutional Integrity Department at the World Bank, which has absolutely no integrity. And Paul Volcker came in and did a whitewash, but that wasn't, completely covered up, because there was then an article that was put up by a group that calls itself the Government Accountability Project. But that group is a bunch of shills, so they took down their criticism. What was the criticism? The criticism was that 17 different members of the Institutional Integrity Department were punished for trying to tell Paul Volcker what was really going on. Anyway, a group called Common Dreams kept that information up on the Internet. The Internet is still mostly functional, and I say mostly because there's a lot of disinformation that goes out on the Internet. But in any event, so to answer the question of the skeptics, there is a man who has inherited the job of signing on something called the Global Collateral Account. His name is Wolfgang Struck, and Wolfgang and I have put up a lot of documentation, and we have a lot more.
About this gold in Hawaii, this 170,000
that's right.
metric tons.
Yeah, and
it's kept in the Bank of Hawaii. There's no military guarding it. I mean, people look at that.
No, it's not gold that's there. What's there is a certificate. And the real gold is where we know where it is, but we don't have to tell everybody. Some people are saying we need pictures of gold bars. We can give you pictures of gold bars. Some people say the pictures are photoshopped.
Where are the gold bars? Where is the gold? If it's not in Hawaii and there's just certificates, where is it?
Okay, the gold itself is safe, and I'm not going to tell you, but we know where it is. And in the meantime, the certificates are on deposit in all of the banks that are too big to fail, that are really one bank. And we've got the signature of the officials. Some of those officials were placed there by Ferdinand Marcos, and they're betraying him. One of the interesting things.
Let me back up here.
Yeah.
Let me hit you. Well, what are the interesting things? Finish your thought, then I have another question.
All right. As I said, it's not just gold. This is the wealth of humanity. It's also paintings. And recently, there were 4 paintings, one of them by Monet, the water lilies, I believe it was, that Ferdinand Marcos's, or Imelda Marcos's maid tried to sell, and she was convicted of theft. And anyway, so I got in touch with the lawyers there, and I said, those paintings are actually part of the Global Collateral Account. We're the ones. Humanity is the one that's entitled to those paintings. And Wolfgang is asking me to follow up on that matter. Also to help educate people about the legality, the structure of where the world's wealth is. It's for benefit of humanity.
Now let's back up to the currency. You said the currency, the United States dollar, is teetering on a collapse. There are all kinds of reports out and rumors out that we have 4 dead bankers here just happened to, commit suicide. One with a nail gun. One decided to throw himself off the 33-story of J.P. Morgan. Another one at Deutsche Bank hung himself. Another guy blew his brains out up in the Pacific Northwest. We've had 4 different bankers commit suicide, and there are all kinds of theories out there, like they were getting ready to join your whistleblowing, cadre of people to start blowing the whistle on all this corruption. Also, that it appears that you just said, and other people are saying the same thing, the U.S. dollar is teetering on insolvency. Tell us how bad the U.S. dollar is, and can you join together these bankers that are killing themselves?
Yes. One of the groups that I've been working with, I've been working with a lot of people. Humanity is actually united and pulling together. And that includes the militaries, by the way. One of the whistleblowers that joined me is a guy named Michael O'Bannon. That may just be, a pen name, but he wrote a book, and the summary of the book is very, very interesting. It says that this world corruption depended on 2 things. It depended on complete secrecy of this structure of control. That didn't happen, obviously. We've documented exactly who's complicit. The Knights of Malta, the secret societies. So that part doesn't work. And the other ingredient was that the military, the United States military, had to be content to be an enforcing arm. And instead, what you have is a whole series of events that show that the military is certainly not in the hip pocket of these corrupt entities. So, for example, on October 8th, there was an attempt to explode a nuclear device in South Carolina over Charleston.
There were reports about that, yes.
That's right. And what happened was Major General Michael Carey, he was commander of the 20th Air Force, responsible for 3 wings of intercontinental missiles, and Vice Admiral Tim Giardina, who was in charge of the Navy's nuclear arsenal. Instead, they concocted a story why those 2 patriots needed to be fired. And then there was a whole series of other military officials that were fired. And this, it was pretty clear what happened.
But it looks like the bad guys are winning. I mean, it looks like they're winning. I mean, yet J.P. Morgan just paid another $614 million. Last week, Bank of America settled for $8.5 billion. All of them are surrounding allegations of fraud. I mean, J.P. Morgan has been at the center of fraud. There's Forex, fraud, being alleged over in the UK. Baffin's doing an investigation on all the gold and the price rigging. It just looks like we're losing. Looks like things are going to blow up. What say you?
Okay, let's go back to the military.
Okay.
Let me tell you about my connection with the military.
Oh, you got to talk about the currency. You were going to bring in the bankers killing themselves in the currency.
Yes. All right.
Let's get that in there first.
I mentioned Able Danger. Let me just finish that part.
Okay.
There are 2 ways of getting people inside the matrix, people call it, to comply. One is through honeypots. Yeah? You know what a honeypot is? That is where people can't help themselves being attracted to affairs. In fancy hotels with 2-way mirrors, they get exposed. Okay? That's one way. And the other way is through giving them huge salaries. So, this carrot and the stick. And it may quite likely be that these people were cornered and they had nowhere to go. So some of this may have been suicide because they just had nowhere to go. And that's very common.
What about the currency? You said the U.S. dollar is teetering on insolvency.
Yes, I just put up an interview with Antal Fekete, who's a Hungarian economist in the monetary specialty.
He's well known.
Yes, talking about how you can tell, just measuring how the paper currencies are about to crash. You can look at whether the difference in the price of gold for immediate delivery and future delivery is positive or negative. If it's negative, that's called gold backwardation. That's one way you can look at the
In other words, gold you buy today is more expensive than gold you could buy 3 months from now.
That's right. And another way is the amount of gold that's disappearing from COMEX. That's also a problem. Another way is whether the central banks that used to lease their gold are still leasing it. No, they're not. That became impracticable because the banks would not get their gold back at the end of the lease term. And then there's the problem about Germany asking to repatriate its gold and being told that it would take 7 years, and then not even the Federal Reserve not even complying with that schedule. So you can tell that gold is, as Fnck puts it, is going into hiding. But the fact of the matter is, let's go back to what we were talking about, the gold that's cloaked in secrecy in the collateral account. And as I said, the IMF and the World Bank have a function of supervising that gold. And we, Wolfgang Struck and I, have allocated the gold. It's not just to the United States, it's to all the countries of the world. And so I am in touch with the officials in all of those 188 countries and with the people in those countries who don't want to continue to pay interest on their debt, which is a huge scam. There's no reason for that. So once people understand the scam is over. That's why I'm optimistic. And because the militaries, in the meantime, are keeping order. And so I didn't finish telling you about my connection with the U.S. military. Chuck Hagel, when he was a senator in 2008, had written a book, and I went to his book signing, and I confronted him. I had also met with his staff member, and, I spoke to him about this very accurate power transition model, which was predicting that the United States was going to lose its leadership if we didn't separate ourselves from this corruption. And it turns out it's not just the United States that's been captured in this system. The Bank for International Settlements, it's got central banks in all of these different countries. That's part of this scheme of, it's a Ponzi scheme. And anyway, so I have been working with the people inside the Department of Defense that know about this power transition model, which says that the United States is at a fork in the road. And actually, it turns out that it's not just the United States, it's all of humanity. Either we take back our gold and our legality, and we tell this group that thinks it's above the law that it is not above the law, or we can kiss ourselves goodbye. Humanity will not continue. We will have World War III. And it's very clear. The militaries, the three militaries, this is what Michael O'Bannon wrote me. He said that the United States military, the Russian military, and the Chinese military are all working together to eradicate this world corruption so that humanity can continue. And that's where we are. And I can document every single thing I'm saying, and you should read Michael O'Bannon's book. It's a real eye-opener, and I can make that available to your readers.
How close are we to some sort of breakout where the price of gold starts climbing back up in relative to dollars? I mean, if all the currencies are, I want to get back into that. With Dr. Fnck said that you could tell that the currencies are all in trouble. And tell me about what could happen if this thing doesn't get fixed. What is the I'm hearing that the United States dollar is going to be devalued, that there could be $2. People like Jim Willey, who's got a PhD in statistics at Golden Jackass, he's talking about there could be a trade dollar and a domestic dollar, and that we could have big inflation no matter what how you cut it. I mean, it looks like the currency of the worlds are in big trouble, particularly the world's reserve currency. Also, there's been members in China openly, big-name people who have been in the World Bank, chief economist, I think his name is Lin, who's in China, saying that the United States dollar should no longer be the world's reserve currency. What kind of peril do we have for the U.S. dollar in the U.S. if the dollar is no longer the world's reserve currency?
Well, I have a very good document which shows what this quantitative easing has done to the strength of the dollar. Quantitative easing, that's just a stupid word that the Fed invented to try to bamboozle everybody. They're just printing dollars, without any backing, as if it had no effect. And of course, it does have effect. So you can see in the graph what the amount of the flood of dollars is. You can see what the treasuries that have been buying the dollars are now doing. The only one buying the dollars, as far as I can see now, is the U.S. Treasury, the Federal Reserve notes. Yeah. So, and there are some statements in there about how it was intentionally done to try to crash the dollar. They're trying to weaken the United States, as if we would sit back and let them get away with it. No, this isn't happening.
You say the Federal Reserve is trying to weaken the dollar. Why hasn't
Yes, they're traitors. They're traitors. They are not owned by the U.S. government. They are part of this network of control. And why would we let them do this? Of course we wouldn't. That was the point that I was confronting General Dempsey with. Why are we going to sit back and let them get away with it? No, we're not going to.
It looks like we're losing, though. I don't mean to. I want to be devil's advocate. These are the questions people are asking. People are sitting there going, "We've got Forex scandals over in UK. Nothing's happening with the LIBOR scandal. The German regulators are going into gold price fixing. They say it could be, the charges are, it could be worse than LIBOR. You got J.P. Morgan paying another big fine just last week, $614 million. Not a single banker has gone to jail. Not a single big banker has gone to jail. Bank of America the week or 2 weeks before, $8.5 billion in settlements for mortgage securities fraud. Everywhere, money laundering for drug cartels, admitted money laundering for terrorists, HSBC, Standard Charter, Deloitte Consulting. The list goes on. It's unbelievable. The fraud is unbelievable. Stories out of Europe about how corruption is off the charts. Nobody, not a single person has gone to jail. Eric Holder said in the last year or two that if they did prosecute the bankers, it would crash the system. It just looks like we're losing. It looks like we're headed for a black hole of financial ruin. What say you?
Well, Greg, I have a very good answer for all of that.
Okay.
And that is, if you look at this power transition model, which is 90 to 95% accurate, you can look at the literature on this model, and you can look at the indicators that it's correct. We didn't have a nuclear war in Syria. When Jacek Kugler came to me, he said, we better form these coalitions or there will be a nuclear war in the Middle East. What happened? The United Kingdom Parliament would not go forward with that fake information about sarin gas. The credibility of the mainstream media, I think that's a very good indicator for whether we're on track or not. If you ask the American public how much confidence they have in their mainstream media, it is tanking. So that tool is now no longer in the arsenal of the crooks. And that's the dynamic. And so this business about how do we know whether we're going to blow ourselves up with World War III or whether we're going to take back the rule of law and take back the gold that we own and that's there for us and that's been allocated to us by the authorized signatory. And the answer is I have no guarantees, but I do have confidence in the accuracy of this. Since I was interviewed last on USA Watch, that was, I think, on the 21st of October, we have made enormous strides, this group that I'm talking about.
Tell us about some of your strides, because the news looks like that these guys are winning. I mean, John Corzine is the head of the MIRA program now, my retirement account. Blythe Masters is on the board of the futures trading, the FTC, the CFTC, right? And I'm thinking to myself, these are people that are swirled in reports of either incompetence or impropriety, improper management of accounts. John Corzine imploded. MF Global. He's at least incompetent. It took him. He was only at the helm for less than 2 years.
Okay, let me give you some good indicators, Greg. Okay. One of the central pivot points in this power transition model is what's going to happen with Germany. Yeah. So they asked for their gold back. Now what's happened is their central bank is the Germans are very angry with the Europeans for having quantitative easing in the European Central Bank.
Yeah, they know there's a
court case. There is a court case going on here. Yeah. So it's not all copacetic for these crooks. As a matter of fact, I think one of the best indicators is to look at gold. And where is gold? And what is going to happen with gold?
Tell me what's going to happen to the price of gold. I mean, is the price about right here, or should it be much higher to equalize all these tens of trillions of dollars in debt that's floating around the world. What's with the price of gold?
The price of gold has been manipulated by
up or down.
It's been manipulated down deliberately, and what's happening is it's all paper that is being offered in the future against delivery. But there's many more contracts for future delivery of gold than there is actual gold in COMEX to make good on those offers. So this is not going to continue, is it? No, it's not going to continue.
That means the price is going to find its a real level, which is higher than where it is now.
Greg, I have what can I say? Gold is not like your usual commodity. It does maintain its value over history consistently. It is used as currency, and nobody can take that away from gold. So what happens when the paper currencies are about to crash is you see this gold backwardation, which has been there for a year. It's not going to continue indefinitely. What's ultimately going to happen? And, going back to the question about whether I'm being overly optimistic and whether we're going to pull this out of the hat, it may be that we don't, in which case we end up in what happened in the 300, 400, just before we went into the Dark Ages, when gold went into hiding. So we have a window of opportunity, and as Antal Fnck said, we can either make the most of this window of opportunity and bring this gold that belongs to humanity out of its cloak of secrecy and out of hiding, or we can go back into the Dark Ages, and we can have pestilence and starvation. And so for people who are, asking me what I'm doing, I turn that question right back around on them. Make yourself informed. I'm glad you're watching this. And get with the program. Demand accountability. Demand that we have a strong dollar. Demand that the program that John F. Kennedy was putting into effect before he was murdered gets implemented. We have uncut dollars that are printed that just simply have to be cut and issued. Why don't we do this?
They're not Federal Reserve notes. If people don't understand this, when we give the Federal Reserve, treasuries, and then they give us Federal Reserve notes, we pay interest for them to print our money. We could just print our own money, is what you're saying.
Yes.
We could just print dollar. The other thing is that, a Sacagawea dollar or a half dollar is a dollar, not a Federal Reserve coin. It's a half dollar, a quarter dollar, or a dollar.
That's right. And as Antal Fnck has mentioned, Federal Reserve notes are unconstitutional. And what we ultimately have in mind is that the gold that belongs to humanity would be coined. So there's no interest on it. It's honest money. And it may take a while to coin all this gold, obviously. So there would be paper certificates of gold in the interim. And then what we have in mind is nothing, actually. People are going to have to take charge. And when I say people are going to have to take charge in the United States, what that looks like is that there's something called Article 5 Constitutional Convention. 41 state legislatures have asked for this, and Congress has no leeway. They're required to provide this. Have they done it? No. And there's a lot of disinformation because, the mainstream media is owned by these culprits. But the fact remains that Americans can do just what the people in Iceland did, and we can fix what's broken. And one of the things that's broken is the fact that we have a second secret constitution. And a lot of people think I'm speaking gobbledygook when I say this. I can show the skeptics a meeting in 1995 of researchers in Carolina who went into the second constitution was written in 1871, right after the Civil War. And so these researchers went back to see their governor's records and found out, yes, of course, there was a secret constitutional that was put into place, that was set up so that we people wouldn't actually have representation in Congress. The people in Congress would be managers of a corporation. And the states were also incorporated. This sounds ridiculous, but what's really ridiculous is that people don't know that this fact actually occurred, and I can show people the facts. The skeptics, I can absolutely prove this.
Well, let's go back to gold. I want to just kind of end on, because gold to me seems like a linchpin of what you're talking about. Is that right?
Yes, because it shows the value. But, you know, when people are also saying, where is the gold?
We can.
They say that the gold couldn't exist. I can show you how clear it is that the gold exists by showing you the charlatans that are trying to steal it from humanity illegally. You've got the Office of International Treasury Control that said they were entitled to it. You've got Swiss Indo that said they were entitled to it. You've got a crook by the name of Dr. Hendo Henderson who says he was entitled to it. And then you've got a fool named James McBride who said he was entitled to it. So if there was no gold, why did they set up all these elaborate schemes to steal it? No, it's there. It's very much there.
So let's talk about the currency being in trouble. How close are we to having a currency crisis? You're saying that you can tell that you're close to a currency meltdown, a global currency meltdown because of gold. How close are we to a currency meltdown?
We don't want to go there.
But how close?
I don't think we want to get close to the edge. Gold has been in backwardation now, which Antal Fnck calls a red alert. We've been in red alert now for a year. Do we want to see how close we can get to the edge? Of course we don't. Why would we? It's time for us to take back our gold.
And if we do go over the line, what happens?
We go into the Dark Ages, just like we were in the 400s. Civilization breaks down. We can't pay for our international trade.
Oh, that's profound. That means people would be bartering.
No, there's no time to barter. Think about the goods would not even be available in the stores. People wouldn't want to sell them.
Everybody would hoard everything they had.
Everything.
They would hoard water, food, tools. They would hoard capital. They would hoard gold. Would the currency be worth anything? Would dollars be worth anything? Would they work for a while?
Well, there might be a period of time that you would have the prices changing, doubling and tripling on a daily basis.
And dollars would work.
It's just paper. It's not backed by anything. This is what happens to paper currency. I was the country lawyer in Argentina when their currency collapsed. I was the country lawyer in Nigeria when their currency collapsed. You don't want to be there. It's not comfortable.
Karen Hudes, former World Bank attorney, thank you for coming on and enlightening us, and we are all polling for you. I hope you come back and give us a progress report about what's going on. Okay?
Thank you.
And thank you for answering the tough questions about the gold, the skeptics. Thank you very much for not being angry about me asking you about these at all. I've tried to hit the questions that people wanted me to ask you when you got in front of me via Skype and to ask you these questions. And thank you. That I appreciate you not being upset and angry about it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Anytime.